All right. Go ahead, D-Star.
What's going on, everybody? I'm here on Ringside Report. Look at this, and I'm being joined by the one and the only Beeb I know. I don't think there's any other Beebs out there. What's going on, Beeb?
What's going on, buddy?
Now we are live right now. I want to make sure you guys throw a jab at that like button as you come in, and if you're listening in archive, hit that for those too literal. Just click on that like button, right? Let me tell you right now, babe. We have the Zone, the app, right? As we know, Canelo signed his big exclusive deal to the Zone. This means you cannot watch Canelo anywhere else on pay-per-view or on any other network on television, right? And it was a big deal that he signed. I forget the exact number. What was the number again? Like 300 and some million?
365, 365 million.
365. Easy to remember, right? 365 days a year.
$1 million for every day of the year.
He got $1 million for every day of the year. That is insane. All right. He's at the beach. He's getting $1 million, dude. All right.
Yeah.
But and not to mention, it looks like sometimes he could get more if he could renegotiate some of the fights,
Yeah.
But right now they are breathing down Canelo's neck, man. They are breathing down his neck. They want to fight, and they're declining a lot of the fights. From what I understand, I believe they declined the Munguia fight. They said, ain't gonna happen, right? So Canelo's kind of backed up to a corner here, man. What do you think's gonna happen? I mean, what? Well, before we get to what is Canelo gonna do, I first want to ask you, from the Zone's perspective, can you kind of understand where they're coming from in terms of, hey, we want a big fight here?
Well, this is what people don't understand. And again, I've said this before, and I'm probably beating a dead horse, and I sound like a broken record. The Zone gave Canelo a lot of money, okay? They've given other fighters like Anthony Joshua, who's doesn't have an exclusivity deal, but they're still paying him well when he fights on the Zone. Golovkin's getting paid well. So when you're shelling out all this money, you're going to want some bang for your buck, okay? Right. So these people that think, Eddie Hearn and Oscar De La Hoya have total control on what's going on. They don't have to talk to anybody. They make all the decisions, blah, 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 blah. I don't think people understand what the word partner means. Partner means that you have a partner, okay? You run things by your partner. You make decisions collectively. There's no I in partner. There's we in partner. So for people to just assume that these guys have, this infinite control and nothing can stop them is ridiculous. Now, Canelo can sit there and say, well, I don't want to fight this guy, I don't want to fight that guy. But at the end of the day, he's going to end up sitting out, because if the DAZN does not choose to broadcast the fight, then Canelo doesn't get paid. Now, the money's guaranteed, yes, but do we know the ins and outs and the little intricacies of this contract? I'm sure DAZN has the ability to be involved in the decision making on who Canelo fights, and definitely they wanted him to fight Golovkin. But obviously now that Canelo's decided that he doesn't really want to fight Golovkin, they're going to require that a suitable replacement, at least someone that's close to Golovkin's level, maybe not even by skill, but by name, is going to be the replacement. Because they're not going to be able to get subscribers if Canelo continues to fight the Rocky Fieldings of the world, with all due respect. So yes, they're breathing down Canelo's neck. And, they said that Munguia was a name that's been floated around, that they do not want to broadcast that fight. They have no interest in that fight. I was hearing that a second offer went to Kovalev, but now a rumor that I'm hearing is the step aside money that was offered to Yard wants more now. So now it looks like Kovalev's off the table again. So now maybe the third option, which is Andre, maybe he comes back into play. So maybe they send him an offer. Who knows what's going to happen next, but I don't want to see a Munguia fight, and that's not because I have anything against Munguia. I just don't think the fight's competitive, and I said that before. Right. But I kind of was thinking that Kovalev would get the call. I really did. I really thought that was going to be the fight. But now, from what I heard today about the issue with the step-aside money, now it looks like that's off the table again. Now, in the 13th hour, can they come back with something for Yard in terms of more step-aside money? Who knows? Who knows? But they got to do something quick because September 14th is not that far away.
Right. Plus, with a subscription service, not like pay-per-view, you have to worry about two things, babe, right? One, of course, is selling it, just like you would sell a pay-per-view, right?
Yeah.
The second thing that's really important in a subscription service is return customers, right?
Yeah.
You want people to say, man, this product is really good. I'm going to keep it. You know, if people can't say, if they feel cheated or they feel like, who the hell was this dude Canelo just fought? Is this the quality that,
yeah,
even if it's not true, even if you're getting the World Boxing Super Series, you're getting a lot of other great boxing fights on the zone, but if this is their first impression of it, they're going to perceive it as, well, this is the type of crap that the zone gives us. I'm going to unsubscribe, right? You know, and so for a subscription service, they're branding themselves here. This is the zone, right? When boxing fans felt cheated from a pay-per-view fight, they just blamed boxing in general. You know what I mean? They didn't blame a specific branding. But now with an app, yes, they do blame the actual app now. And it's very important for the zone to say, okay, look, we gave you the Rocky Fielding fight because it was your first fight in the zone, and we threw you that bone. You gave us a Jacobs fight, which is a good fight, but we need something bigger here. And that's why they were pushing for that Kovalev fight and for that Triple G fight. The Kovalev fight to me was just a random ass fight. The Triple G fight, I don't mind just so they can finish that trilogy. Finishing the trilogy on their network would be big for them, right? But the fight I want to see, and it's real makeable, is the Andre fight. And I'm telling you, if people feel like, man, Canelo could lose this fight, they're going to tune in and they're going to watch it, man. All right? They're going to tune in and watch it if they feel Canelo can lose that fight. That's just my opinion. No one is buying that Munguia is going to beat Canelo. Like, nobody buys that. People buy two things: exciting fights, right? And if they don't know the outcome, like right out. You know what I mean? So that's the issue. That's where they are right now. It's hard to, you got to sell them something and then keep them around. And I don't think the zone is going to put up with any, lower tier fighter for Canelo just to look good. Not for the amount of money they're paying this guy. They're paying him way too much money, okay, for him to be fighting other Rocky Fieldings or a Munguia. You know what I mean?
I agree. And if he fights Munguia, they'll ruin that kid's career, man.
Yeah.
People want to sit there and compare this to, like, well, what about Canelo when he fought Mayweather? But Mayweather didn't hurt Canelo. Canelo would hurt Munguia. Put some damage on him. Lasting damage. So that's why I want to see that fight.
Yeah, so, I mean, Mayweather just embarrassed Canelo. He didn't like you said, he didn't physically beat him down, But that's my thing with this, man. I honestly feel, and I don't know how you felt when you first saw this, but you remember when Gennady Golovkin had his first fight in the zone, and De La Hoya comes out and he says, "Oh, good fight. Now fight someone else for a belt, and maybe you can fight us again."
Yeah.
Like, if he calls the shots, dude. Like first of all, you already fought the dude twice. Like, stop acting like you don't know who he is or he has to prove something to you. All right. What was your impression of that when De La Hoya came out and tweeted that out? Like, if he has 100% control of what's going to happen.
Well, it's just more posturing from De La Hoya. De La Hoya tweets out a lot of stuff. He has to, be in the public eye. He needs attention. He's always been that way. I don't think at this point, people will report on what De La Hoya says, but they don't put much stock in it. Because again, when the fights are getting put together, they still have to sit down with the zone, and the zone has to look at this, the opponent, and determine if the opponent is a worthy contender or not. If it's a
Right.
If it's a big enough fight that's worth them broadcasting. I mean, it's their money. Of course, they're going to have a decision on how their money is being used, right? No one just invests money in something and just sits back and folds their hands and says, hey, do what you want with it. I don't care if you blow it. I mean, that's not how it works. That's not how business works.
And not only that, and great points, but September 14th, that big weekend for Canelo, that Mexican Independence, El Día de la Independencia de Mexico, all right? It's 2 months. We're like a little over 2 months away. Like, he's got to make a decision ASAP. And the zone's already saying, nah, we're not going to do that Munguia fight, right? So they've been cornered to where they might have to do this Triple G fight. And if Triple G is like, nah, not right now, then he might have to do that Andre fight, right? I don't see what other fight he could do, to be honest with you.
I think the Andre fight's probably the last viable option, really, if you want to look at it, in my opinion. Who else would be a suitable opponent? Because, I mean, if they're not going to fight Golovkin, then Andre's the only guy.
It's that, or he's got to move the date, which I don't think they want to do. You know, I don't think they want to move the date. And to me, it might be Canelo's last shot at this date, because if Ruiz beats AJ in the rematch, bro, he's taking over those dates. I've been telling people that for a while, but Canelo better make a decision quick. And I do want to let you guys know right now, man, we got 18 people right now listening in. All right, we got 7 likes. Make sure you throw a jab at that like button. All right, utilize the jab. It sets everything up, okay? Look, here's something I want to say about the zone, man, right? These guys are out here trying to make this business model work, and it's not going to work. If the business model, the way they're putting it out there, the way they're doing the advertisement is, we're killing pay-per-view, right? Like, we're going to give you what you would have paid on a pay-per-view platform for Canelo fights. We're going to give you that on our platform now, right? And if they want to make that perception somehow a reality, they have to put Canelo in tough fights, in competitive fights, and fights that people want to see. You know, you got to balance all those things out. And they're running out of options. You know, I don't know. Do you think Golden Boy is in any way, shape, or form regretting this decision?
No, because at the end of the day, it's always about the money, and this is the best financial situation for them.
Do you predict that Canelo will finish his contract with the Zone, or will there be some type of breakup? Yeah, they're already, this is his third fight now. They're already having some issues.
I'm very skeptical whether a lot of fighters will, like Golovkin will finish his contract and Canelo will finish his contract. Because again, Canelo could lose, and then obviously the terms will change. We don't know what if the Zone decides, you know what, this isn't worth the aggravation dealing with this guy. If he's not going to fight the opponents that we think he should fight, maybe they could buy him out. Maybe the Zone, I'm not going to say they're going to fold, but maybe I don't know, maybe things will happen with the Zone, and maybe they won't be able to pay all these fighters. I don't know. I'm not saying that they're going to fold, but that's still a possibility. If they don't get the subscriptions up, maybe they may decide to just throw in the towel. I don't know. So I think at the end of the day, something could present itself and force these contracts to expire or be null and void before the expiration date.
I mean, do you think the Zone can work without the big name fighters? Like, if there were an app for, you could have champions and contenders on there, but maybe not the big names you have to pay $30 million to. You know what I mean? Well, like, if they just had, guys that they'll pay them $1 million or $500,000, $2 million. Do you think it's a better option for them to just go that route?
My whole thing with the Zone was, and I was talking to Steve Kim about this when he came on the show, is why did they sign these guys to such long deals? Like HBO used to sign guys to like 2 or 3 fight deals, for 4-fight deals. Like Showtime signed Floyd to, I think it was a 6-fight deal. But these guys are signing to like fucking 11 fights. I know I think the Golovkin deal is only 6 fights, but why would you sign someone who's 35 years old to a 6-fight deal? Why would you sign someone to an 11-fight deal? You know, Floyd, for the most part, even when he fought on HBO, his deals weren't like 6 fights, 11 fights. I think the Showtime deal was the only really extensive contract Floyd ever signed in his career, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right.
I think the DAZN jumped the gun on some of these contracts and put up, they overcommitted themselves, I think, in my opinion.
I think they should have done fight. Like, I think, in my opinion, the DAZN should have, for big fighters like Triple G, Canelo, they could have gone the HBO route where they'll bid on those fights. You know what I mean? And if they win the fight, fine, they could have it on their app. And they could still promote it like, hey guys, subscribe to the DAZN, $20 a month. You would have paid $70 for this fight, but we got it for you this time, whatever, right?
Well, they should work with Golovkin and they should work with Canelo the same way they're working with Joshua.
Exactly. But they could have done that. And then if they want to have exclusive deals with, like, I don't want to say lower in terms, I'm not talking about skill level or ranking or anything like that. But when I say lower, I'm talking about how much you got to pay them, right? Guys that are not as big stars. It could have been an app for, boxing around the world, like the World Boxing Super Series, fights in Japan, fights in Europe, fights in England, fights domestically that maybe showed that they couldn't bid against Showtime and ESPN for or whatever. It could have been an app, and then they didn't have to break bank with these guarantees. I think they backed themselves in a corner where, I mean, they got to make up for a lot of this money that they're paying Canelo and Gennady Golovkin. It's crazy to me. It's way too much money.
It's turning out to be a bigger headache than they probably thought at the end of the day. And not only, I'm sorry, and not only that, like the DAZN's really becoming big now. Now they're trying to get involved with the NFL Sunday Ticket. There's an article on the web. I don't know if you read that. Maybe I'll send it to you later. I should have sent it to you. I'm sorry.
Right.
But they're trying to get involved in the NFL Sunday Ticket. They're trying to get involved with NHL in some capacity, do it like NHL shows. So they're really expanding their brand. And from what I understand, they've gotten rid of a lot of their debt too. They've paid a lot of their debt down this year. And we have to keep in mind that they are an international app. They're not just a US-based app. So when people think about how many subscribers they have to look at the totality of the subscribers from other countries as well. And I don't think people are doing that. So I think the DAZN is bigger than we think, but I still don't think they're making that splash in the United States like they really wanted to. But again, only time will tell. Now, if this Ruiz rematch turns out to be a great fight, then this will be something special. And if Joshua can win the rematch and it turns out to be a great fight, then that can only help the app. If Ruiz wins, I think it's a blow to the DAZN because they'll lose a big name in Joshua. I mean, obviously he can still fight on the DAZN, but the fights just won't be as special. They won't be as special and big as well. Correct. With if he was to lose the Ruiz rematch, and then if Canelo's going to sit here every time and pick and choose like this and not fight the fight that they wanted him to fight, which was Golovkin, then they may be having a little bit of buyer's remorse right now with the Canelo situation. Maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but if it's going to be this difficult to make a simple fight like the Golovkin fight, all because you don't like the guy, well, that's all the more reason why to fight him. You don't want to give him a payday. Well, he gave you a payday twice,
right?
So it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I just think that, like you said, I think there's some buyer's remorse there, and who could blame them? I mean, they forked out a lot of money, okay, for these fights, and of course they can say, nah, we don't want that fight. These guys need to add subscriptions, and keep subscriptions.
That's the key word, keep.
Right, you got to keep them, right? So you got to add them and keep them. You need return customers. And I don't think they want to have mismatches on the DAZN. They don't want to be known as the mismatch app. right? Because nobody's going to buy it at that point.
Well,
so
that's why they created that situation that they have now, that subscription option they created,
right.
where you can pay for the whole year. Because I'm suspecting a lot of people were dipping in and dipping out, which is something they don't want. They want, like you said, consistency with their subscribers. They want someone who's going to be in it for the long haul, and that's the only way they can really increase their brand by that. But now, if they can't maintain the subscriber base, and people are going to continue to dip in and dip out. I'm sure a lot of people dipped in and dipped out for that Joshua fight, even regardless of that deal that they have. But, again, it's all about incentive. It's like, you give me a reason to stay every month. And if you're not going to give me a reason to stay every month, then, people aren't going to commit to their DAZN subscriptions. Then, I got grandfathered and I'm paying the $9.99 a month, and I think in October, that's when I'm going to try to just pay for the whole year. But I have to wait for this subscription to end. Then I'll just pay the $99. What is it, $99?
But your situation is different to your regular person, right? So,
yeah.
But you're right about that, the grandfather thing. But so I'm not really talking about that. But like you have a boxing channel, you do a show on Sundays, like you cover boxing. Like, you know what I mean?
I need
so
it. I need it.
I have DAZN because I want to talk about these fights on my boxing channel, right? So it's different, right? I don't know if I would pay for it if I wasn't doing a boxing channel. I got to be honest.
I would.
I would dip in and dip out probably. All right.
You would dip in and dip out, yeah.
That's what I was doing
on principle. Basically on principle, because what you're sitting there saying, why should I pay for something that I'm not using every month?
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I got it for the Jacobs Canelo fight, and I've had it ever since. Right? I've made 3 payments now since then. So I'm keeping DAZN because I want to talk about these fights. You know what I mean? Sure. If I want to watch, Ramirez versus Hooker, I need DAZN. So that's why that's why I have it. Right. So, but with that said, DAZN is trying to do something. They're trying to change people's perception of what and where a big fight is at, right? So let me give you an example. When I was a kid, I was working out of town. It was in Silver City, New Mexico. We were building a Walmart over there. I was working with my uncles. There was a De La Hoya fight in El Paso, and they had to fight on regular HBO, right? It was in the Sun Bowl, but it was on regular HBO. Now, Don King and the whole they had pushed pay-per-views so much that they wired into people's heads that a big fight has to be on pay-per-view, right? It was never like that before. Ali never fought on pay-per-view. Like, there was no such thing as pay-per-view. But I remember,
circuit. They used to use closed circuit back in Ali's day.
Closed circuit. Okay, gotcha. But my point is, there was this perception like HBO. De La Hoya, he can't even sell pay-per-view anymore. He's on HBO, right? And I'll never forget, one of my uncles said, what's he going to do next? Fight on Fox, right? With the regular network TV?
Yeah.
But he said it like in a demeaning way. Like that's just not something a great fighter does. Great fighters fight on pay-per-view. Like if you're a big fighter, you're the face of boxing, you got to fight on pay-per-view. And since then, I mean, we've had, of course, there was Tyson before that. You had De La Hoya, Mayweather, Pacquiao. Pay-per-view was a big thing. And so when a fight was considered big, right, the perception is, well, it's got to be on pay-per-view. DAZN has come out and said, not anymore. We're going to kill pay-per-view. Now all the big fights are going to be on DAZN, right? Now we know that's not necessarily true because we still have pay-per-views going on, but that's their branding. Okay, that's the branding that they're pushing. Now, my question is, do you think they're being successful at that, baby? Do you think they're changing people's minds on, a big fight doesn't have to be on pay-per-view. It could be on DAZN. It could be on an app. It could be on regular TV.
Well, the reason why they're not going to be able to do that is because of the streaming. And people are still going to buy pay-per-views anyway. So you can, even with all of this technology now in this illegal streaming, a guy like Pacquiao, who's not nearly as popular as he once was back in the day, if he's still able to sell 400,000 pay-per-view buys against a guy like Adrian Broner, if Deontay Wilder, first time out, fighting a guy from the UK that no one in the United States knows, can do 330 or 340,000 pay-per-view buys, then that says something about the pay-per-view market. And if people like PBC are going to continue to put pay-per-views out there, I mean, can you remember a time when we've had this many pay-per-views in 1 year?
It's been a while.
Pay-per-views have actually gone up. Let's count it down now. We had Pacquiao, Broner, Crawford, Khan. Who else was on pay-per-view this year?
Spence Garcia.
Spence Garcia, that's 3. And
late last year,
that's 3. That's 3 in half the year.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna have what else is coming up on pay-per-view?
Isn't Spence Porter going to be on pay-per-view?
No, Pacquiao, Thurman's pay-per-view. That's 4. So unless in just about a little over half the year, we're already going to have 4 pay-per-views, and I think that we'll probably have another big pay-per-view at the end of the year. We could have maybe Tyson Fury's next fight will be on pay-per-view. Who knows?
It depends who he fights.
Yeah, maybe Deontay Wilder probably won't be on pay-per-view, but if Ruiz beats Joshua, he can stop becoming a pay-per-view fighter too. So, come July, we'll already have 4 pay-per-view fights already in the books.
Will Wilder Ortiz be pay-per-view?
Probably not. No. So
probably not.
So we'll see what happens. I'm sure that by the end of the year, Spence may have another pay-per-view fight if he decides to fight again this year.
I just feel like the way boxing is modeled, right? The risk-reward model of boxing, like it's just pay-per-view, whether we like it or not, right? If it was up to me, we would all get the fights for free, guys. But the reality is, it's because of boxing's model, that risk-reward model has. And there's no league that runs it or anything like that. And the fighters have a lot of rights and the Ali Act and everything.
Sure.
Because of all that, it's hard. It's hard to expect the Canelo to get paid. You can't pay Canelo $30 million, dude, to fight Rocky Fielding and expect him to just without hesitation fight a Gennady Golovkin for the same amount of money.
Yeah, I think he got $15 million for that fight, but then he made up for it in the Jacobs fight where he got above the 30-something million.
So I guess it was like the sign-in bonus, right? I guess.
Yeah. So the way I think the deal is structured, and again, this is just from my assumption. I can't factually say it's structured this way, but this is just what I believe, given what I've seen so far, is that $365 million is for 11 fights. Now, does that mean each fight's going to be $33 million and $32 million, whatever? No, one fight could be $15 million. Maybe another fight could be $40 million. With a big enough opponent, maybe 45. Who knows? But I think it's all dependent upon the opponent. So,
yeah, I agree. There's some, even Mayweather with that Showtime deal, he negotiated a little more money for the Canelo and the Pacquiao fights. So there's always room in boxing to renegotiate.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I wanted to go to something now. So go ahead.
No, I think I know where you're going to go, and I was probably going to go the same place. So I'll let you lead in.
Well, so speaking of renegotiate, I just wanted to kind of ask you about this really quick. I touched on it in my last video, so I want your thoughts on this. And I know you talked about it before, but maybe somebody hasn't heard it yet.
Sure.
This Ruiz Joshua thing, the contract, people don't seem to understand that they have to draw a new contract, and some of the stuff is negotiable. Can you explain to people how this is different to the Lewis Rockman situation?
It's different in so many different levels because, as you alluded to in your video, Don King and Rockman wanted to circumvent Lennox Lewis, and they wanted to go right to Tyson. They didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis. Ruiz, he never said he didn't want to fight Joshua. So this is basically coming down to terms. It's not agreeing to the fight. So when you do a rematch clause, for some reason, people already think, or at least they lead me to believe they think, that there's already a second contract drawn up. Why would a second contract already be drawn up if the first fight hasn't been completed and you don't know who won? Now, again, you could put stipulations in there. You could put demands in the rematch. So we can choose where the fight's going to be. But once again, you still have to run all this stuff by a broadcaster where the fight's going to be, because they're going to make a determination whether or not they want to show the fight at that particular time slot, depending upon what country the fight's in or where the fight's going to be. The time slot has to be suitable to the broadcaster. And of course, the broadcaster is going to have a say in all this because they're putting up the money, number one. And number two, anything can be renegotiated. How many times have you seen athletes sign contracts only to have their deals renegotiated midway through the deal? Right? So again, because things were put in, demands were made if the rematch were to take place, there's still a lot of moving parts here. Okay, there's still a lot of moving parts here. And who knows what the DAZN decides to do. If the DAZN decides if they want to kick in a little extra money for Ruiz because they want to get this fight done as quickly as possible. They don't want to have to drag this thing out. So if this thing goes to court, like I said before, which I don't think it will, it only hurts Eddie Hearn because it drags it out. It makes it worse for them because then the sanctioning bodies will step in and start ordering mandatories, and then the belts can get fractured, and then it turns into a big mess. So if they want to make this ugly and they want to make this a legal battle and they want to drag this out, then it's only going to hurt them in the long run. So that's what people don't understand. Are they willing to do that and risk all of that? And not only that, Ruiz beat Joshua, okay? He's looked at as the man, okay? He doesn't have to reestablish himself like Joshua does. He has nothing to prove, really. He does have something to prove. He has to prove that he could do it in a rematch. But if it doesn't happen, people can rest on the fact that he beat up Anthony Joshua in that fight. And now Anthony Joshua is the one that has to redeem himself. Andy Ruiz doesn't have to redeem himself. So there's more at stake here for Anthony Joshua than Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz already hit the lottery. He's already set for life. He's happy. Okay? Anthony Joshua was supposed to take over America. He failed at that task. So he has to reestablish himself. So if this fight doesn't happen right away, this gets pushed back. This fight gets put on the shelf for a while. It only hurts Joshua. So to sit there and say that everything's all set, Hearn snaps his fingers, gets whatever he wants, no one can challenge Hearn. Hearn has this infinite power. He's unstoppable. He has the infinity gauntlet. He snaps his fingers. The fight gets made when and where he wants it. He still has to deal with the DAZN. He still has to deal with Ruiz's people. Okay? So if Ruiz decides, hey, you know what? I don't want to agree to this. What is he going to do? Take him to court. Then I made a video about this before. There's such a thing called an unconscionable contract. It's a legal term. It's a real legal term. So you go to court, and the judge looks over the contract. And if the contract is so one-sided in one party's favor, and it gives the impression that one side is taking the advantage of another side, or one side had no choice but to sign that contract, whether it be under duress or because, and Ruiz could present that case too. I was dead broke, and they took advantage of my financial situation. Either I took this fight, or my family doesn't eat. What if he presents that to a judge? So they knew that, and they used every bit of leverage they could against me, fair or unfair. So there's no guarantee. This is not like the Rockman case, where Rockman just flat out said no. Andrew Ruiz didn't say no. He said yes, but on my terms too. I have to have a say. I'm not just going to be a puppet and go along for the ride here. I'm not a puppy dog. You're going to put a leash on me and string me along throughout this whole ordeal.
Can I play devil's advocate real quick?
You most certainly can.
So this is a question I've heard people ask, right? And the question would be, Well, then why are these contracts drawn out with these? Now, granted, for the record, I've never seen a contract. Neither have the AJ fans, right? Nobody's seen it. But assuming it says, well, if you win in the rematch, you get 10 million guaranteed, and we get to pick where or where the fight happens or whatever. I guess the question would be, why are those contracts drawn out in the first place if they could be renegotiated? What do you think the response for that would be?
Well, because this is. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Have we ever heard of any other promoter doing this before?
I mean, we used to have the options where, like, if a fighter won, he now belonged to that one promoter or something like that.
But how often has a rematch clause stated, oh, even if whoever, I've never seen anybody in my life, and I could be wrong here, but I'll admit I'm wrong here. I've never seen any rematch clause where the guy who wins and becomes champion makes less than the guy in the makes substantially less than the guy in the rematch. Like Lewis versus Rockman. Like Lewis got 11 million, Rockman got 10 million. That's very close. It's almost 50-50, right?
Yep.
Like, I've never seen contracts where a guy gets like 40% even if he wins. You know what I'm saying? So definitely. a lot of this stuff to me is unprecedented. So that's what I'm saying. So, like, you have to ask yourself, why has the Wilder fight? Why is the Dillian White fight? Why is the Tyson Fury fight? Why is the Pulev fight? Why everyone that negotiated with Hearn for an AJ fight, why are they all saying the same thing? Why are they all turning down the deals? Why? Because they're one-sided, ridiculous contracts.
It's definitely a one-sided. The rematch clause, the alleged one, we haven't seen it, of course, but it's definitely one-sided. I agree with you. In modern boxing, I've never seen something like this before.
If the rumors are true, now we've heard Hearn talk about, we have a say in where the fight's going to be,
right?
But he's never really come out and talked about the money part of this, because every time he's been pressed on that, he just smirks and says, You guys know the deal. You guys know what's up. No, we don't know what's up. So we pretty much know that it was, he had a saying where the fight was going to be, but he still had to run that by DAZN too, because DAZN's his partner. So we know that part pretty much, but this whole thing about the finances, that's just a rumor.
Well, here's my thing. My response to anyone who says, "Hey, these are legally binded," this, that, and the third.
Contracts are broken every day.
In a perfect world,
they're broken every day.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
In a perfect world, no problem. But in a perfect world, I guess Andy Ruiz has to go along with it. But circumstances make things negotiable, like they just do. Like, the reality is, when people draw, like when they drew out this rematch clause, they didn't imagine that Ruiz was actually going to win. That's number one.
No.
Okay, but it's just a rematch clause you just put in there to help you start. You start with more chips on your side of the table. Okay, that's what it is, right? But anyone who's played poker, once you start losing those chips, you start losing leverage, right? And to me, he lost a lot of chips in that fight. It's how he lost, how catastrophic that loss was for him. Okay, how viral Ortiz went after the win, how big Ortiz became overnight. This is not the same Ortiz that signed that contract. This is a whole nother Ortiz. This is the Ortiz that has a big win over you, who's a big star, and who has an advisor that knows the business in and out, and they know that DAZN is breathing down the fucking neck of Hearn, right? And they know they got to make this fight happen. They don't have time to go to litigation and all that.
No.
So it is negotiable. By default, it's become negotiable. And that's why I think Ortiz came out and said, do I think he really believes he's the A side? On this side of the pond, he is, right? But I think this is stuff he's been told to say. He knows what to say. Like, he knows that we're going to put this leverage as much on this side to tilt it as much as possible. because the world has changed. The circumstances have changed, right? When I told you this offline, B, but when a man and a woman get married, right, that's a contract, right? They agree to be together till death do us part. Okay, do you agree to honor her, and do you agree to honor him and love him, blah, 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 blah. People get divorced all the fucking time. All the time people get divorced, right? They break that contract all the time. Dude cheats on his wife. Hey, guess what? We're going to break this contract, okay? Or things are going to change in this house, all right? And it's the same thing in boxing. The way you lost, you didn't lose some controversial decision or a fight that could have gone either way, or there was a controversial stoppage. No, like he got beat up, okay, and they stopped this fight. The way you got beat up, they know, bro, you got to avenge this loss, right? Like if you really want to avenge it, they know you need this fight. Like they know that. So, of course, you're going to use that to their advantage because you need this fight. You don't got time to take this to court. And it's hard. Even the Lewis case, the judge gave Rockman a choice, didn't he? 18 months off or you fight Lewis?
Yes.
And that was against a dude that didn't want to fight at all. What do you think a judge's going to say to someone who, like, well, he did say he'll fight you. He'll fight you in the same spot you fought. I don't think they're going to be as harsh with Ruiz as they were with Rockman. And they weren't that harsh.
And that was 18 years ago, T-Style.
Yeah.
So, you know, this courtroom is filled with people who have disputed contracts and people who are trying to enforce contracts against people that are not honoring the contracts. Contracts get broken every day, and contracts get, put into question every day. And not every signed contract is like I said, is enforceable, depending upon the circumstances.
Right. There are circumstances that in law supersede contracts. You know what I mean?
Google.
So if a judge says this contract's unfair, then it's done. There's nothing they can do.
Google,
you know what I mean?
Google unconscionable contract. It explains everything.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I took business law when I was in college. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer or anything like that, but there's a lot of things that I really don't use now, but I still find interesting that I took in college, and that business law is one of them. Unfortunately, I never opened up a business, but at least I know certain things. I have my business law book on my bookcase, and I can look at things. So
right. Absolutely, man. It's definitely a thing. I just Googled it right now. So, if you don't mind, let me just bring this up really quick. Hold on. Just share my screen right away. Are you able to see the screen?
yes.
All right. So, unconscionable, right? Referring to a contract or bargain which is so unfair to a party that no reasonable or informed person would agree to it in suit for breach of contract. A court will not enforce an unconscionable contract, award damages, or specific performance against a person unfairly treated on the theory that he or she is misled, lacked information, or signed under duress or misunderstanding. It is similar to the addition contract, in which one party has taken advantage of a person dealing from a weakness, right? Now, the reason that they came up with stuff like this, just to give you like an example in the boxing world, right? The reality is, let me just stop the screen share here. The reality is, if you remember, like Braddock, the contract he had with Joe Louis was like, if you want a title shot, you need to agree, right, to give me, a percentage of every purse you get from here on out, right? You have to give Braddock a percentage of his purse until the end of his career, right? So that's something that would that fly today be?
No.
Of course not, right?
No.
Absolutely wouldn't fly.
No.
There's no way. Whatever contract Marciano had, I don't know the full story behind that, but apparently he always carried cash. Okay. He always wanted people to pay him with cash because he had signed something that basically, all his money belonged to some lawyer or some shit like that. That would be considered unconscionable today, right? Now, I'm not saying this is to that degree, but there's gray areas in law, and I do think they can make an argument. Ruiz could easily argue that I didn't understand what these guys wanted me to sign. I just thought the rematch meant I have to give him a rematch if he wins, right?
Yeah.
But just something interesting here. One more thing I want to talk to you about, man. By the way, you guys make sure you throw a jab at that like button. All right. How many people we got on here? We got 20 people. We got 15 likes. Let's get it to 20 likes right now. But unrelated to all this, the weight classes in boxing, man. It's just the UFC has 205, and then above that they have heavyweight. And then they have 185, and then they have, I think, 170 or 175. I think it's 170, right? That's 4 weight classes, okay, within 30 pounds, pretty much, 35 pounds that they have.
Yes.
But UFC made their weight classes just a couple years ago, like 2 decades ago. Boxing started making weight classes like in the early 1900s and shit. Started with 8 weight classes, and then they just started randomly this was when heavyweights were like 180 pounds, right? And they just started randomly just filling in those weight classes in between and all that. Do you think boxing weight classes are outdated, and do you think we need to revamp them?
I think we need to revamp them. I think 175 for light heavyweight is too light. There's so many guys. The average guy walking around is like 185 pounds. There's a lot of guys that are 180, 185. And a lot of these middleweights are walking around at 180, 185. So like it's a very common weight. So I kind of like how UFC has their weight classes. There, even though I think they need to have maybe a few more because you have like 15 pound. Well, maybe I don't know, 15 pounds. That's I don't know. It's kind of a big jump in between each weight class, 15 pounds, but I still like the fact that 205 is light heavyweight. 185 is middleweight. All that stuff makes more sense to me because when I look at a guy that's 175 pounds, the last thing I think about is he's any type of heavyweight, let alone a light heavyweight. That's
right.
It's kind of a small guy depending upon how tall he is. If a guy's like most of these light heavyweights are like 6 feet, 6'2", 6'3". And if you're walking around at 175 pounds, you're a pretty lean person. You're not a heavy guy. You're not a big, thick, muscular guy at 175. So that's my only problem is that light heavyweight division. Not my only problem, but it's one of the biggest problems of the whole weight class thing, I think. Because you have 175, and then you have the next weight class is 200 pounds. Think about it.
Yeah, that's a crazy jump.
That's a crazy jump.
Yeah,
there's no in between there.
I mean, not counting heavyweight beef in boxing, you go cruiserweight 200, 175 for light heavyweight, 168 for super middleweight, and then 160 for middleweight. In UFC, you have 205, 185, 170, and 155. That's how they have it structured. Right? Now, I'm not saying that their method is perfect, but what I'm trying to say is, I mean, you watch some UFC, right? I mean, think of all the great fighters at 185 that they've had.
Yeah.
Anderson Silva. You know what I mean? They've had a lot of great fighters at 185. I think boxing is missing out here. I mean, if you're a light heavyweight, and let's say you're having trouble making 175 pounds, and in any other weight class, all right, you jump up, 5 to 8 pounds, depending on, where you are in the boxing rankings.
7 or 8 sometimes.
Yeah. And if you're having trouble making 175 pounds and you're a guy that rehydrates to, let's say, 185 for the sake of argument, right? You have to fight 200 pounds, or you have to fight dudes that rehydrate from 200 pounds.
I mean, that's a 25-pound weight gap from 175 to fucking.
But you know, there's guys cutting weight to make 200.
Of course, they're walking around at 220.
Right. I mean, they need a weight class, at least one in between that. Now, I know what people are going to say. It's sacrilegious to say you want another weight class in boxing because, you know, people say that we have too many weight classes, right?
Of course.
But that's all in the lower weight classes, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all in the lower weight classes. That's not like I don't have that much of an issue with adding a weight class. If anything, cut some of the lower weight classes. These higher weight classes, they need a 185, man. It doesn't make sense to me how you have this huge jump from 175, okay, to 200. I can't believe it.
I agree.
You know, but I want to touch on that, man. I think the weight classes are outdated. Would you move up cruiserweight like to 205 or something like that, 210?
Would I?
Yeah. Or just keep it at 200?
What I would probably do is I would lower cruiserweight to 190 again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what I would do.
So heavyweight's above 190?
Well, you know what? You can't do that. You're right.
Because some of these heavyweights, bro, look at, I mean.
You can't do that. So maybe I would leave it at 200 and just bump up light heavyweight to 185.
Light heavy 185 and just would you keep 175 as a weight class? Just rename it?
I would make 175 super middle. Well, I'd make 175 super middleweight, and then I would take middleweight and make middleweight 165.
165.
Yeah.
All right. And keep 154. Make
Yes.
that 155 maybe.
155.
Yeah. And then 147. Go from there. Yeah.
Leave that alone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that can all be worked, but and for anyone who says, "Oh, you can't do that," man, I've looked up some old school middleweight fights, dude. Middleweight used to be like a 155 on some of these fights. Okay, it was negotiable. Okay, in old school boxing, so you can move it. And people need to relax with but you can't do that, and you could definitely. Boxing's moved the weight classes before, right?
Of course.
With that said, B, man, you got any final thoughts before we wrap this one?
No, I mean, we got a huge weekend of boxing, and Eric and I are going to be going live for that Buatsi Gorman fight and the Jennings Joe Joyce fight, the doubleheader tomorrow, which is going to be broadcast on ESPN Plus. We're going to be doing a live cast of that event, and those are pretty intriguing fights in my opinion. We got a really busy week of boxing. So DVR is going to be probably we're not going to need a DVR because I think most of the fights are on the apps this weekend. So at least we'll be able to go back to the app and watch the archive and all that. So I'll be busy this weekend, and obviously we'll be doing the Sunday show, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you check out the weekly Ringside Reporter podcast, 7 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday night. Call in, join us in the chat, and I mean I'm still excited about the sport of boxing. I like the fact that we have so many ways to watch the sport now. A lot of these fights I wasn't able to watch on these apps that are overseas fights. A lot of these fights are getting rebroadcast on YouTube. So I think boxing has done a lot of good things. Obviously, still needs to fix some things, but in terms of putting it out there to the masses, I think they're doing a great job at that. And I'm just looking forward to these big fights. And I'm sitting here waiting on the Canelo and then Joshua. Fights to be announced. And, I'm waiting with bated breath here. And I'm also really looking forward to that Pacquiao-Thurman pay-per-view next Saturday, which I'll be doing. We'll be doing a live cast on that one, too. And I'll be doing probably a breakdown video of that one very shortly.
Boxing is it's cyclical, man. I remember just last year, or maybe not last, maybe like a year and a half ago, when Crawford moved up, and people were like, man, 140 no man's land. There's nobody's there. And all of a sudden, we got Jose Ramirez. We got Morris Hooker. We got Josh Taylor. We got Regis Prograis. And they're all fighting each other, B.
Yes, yes,
Like
yes.
that's
So
it. Like, we might have an undisputed champion in no time here. I
you're
mean,
right.
but and all these guys are undefeated, and they're going to fight each other. So 140 is exciting. We got to do a video on Hooker Ramirez next week,
Yeah,
right? And this is a cheap plug here. Make sure you guys check out D Style Boxing to subscribe to my channel. All right.
absolutely,
Go
absolutely.
to the community page on my channel. Okay, we'll have some polls coming up for the next Appreciation Week. It is Timothy Bradley Appreciation Week on my channel. All right, and all that is voted on. So there you go. Sign us out, beep.
All right, guys, have a good one.